a vendor's ability to provide products and services and support and infrastructure around prevention and protection against file and fileless threats, the ability to apply control to the endpoint to protect it from an attacker. And in addition to some of those more basic functions, it gets into some of the other types of facilities like EDR capabilities in order to investigate incidents, as well as what type of functions does this platform have to provide remediation guidance to get the user up and running as quickly as possible, to get a workload back and running as quickly as possible, or to just have it continue to run and deflect the threat. So some of the optional functions that they look at are things like reporting and security status of the OS in general, vulnerability management, and the advanced functions that give indicators to the SOC that, whether there are indicators of potentially malicious activity in the environment. So when you look at the actual MQ, how it's constructed, there's a y-axis and an x-axis. Y-axis is a measure of how Gartner views the vendor today. So what types of products and services, how viable is the company, market share, customer experience, that type of thing. And they do extensive market research and as well as looking at customer commentary, as well as digging very deep into how we deliver products and services across the board. Now, the x-axis, the left-right movement, is long-term performance. What is the product strategy? How well integrated is that strategy into different industry solutions, innovation, and is the company delivering this type of solution in a global way? So we are ecstatic, and that's a big exclamation point for us, to have been named a leader in this year's MQ for endpoint protection platforms. We've been in this analyst survey for the last couple of years, I believe since 2016. We spent some time in the visionary quadrant, and as we were growing our company and growing our customer base, and over time we have steadily had a trajectory which is up and to the right, and we're really pleased about that. Some of the things that Gartner says about us, the SentinelOne characteristics, and these are Gartner's words. If you look at the report, which you can get an access to the report at the URL at the bottom right corner, is that they say we have easy deployment and effective protection. I mean, who wouldn't love that? And options to suit all organizations, and capabilities that allow you to protect cloud workloads as you migrate those workloads to the cloud. And they also took into account the Mitre phase 2, which was the second iteration of the Mitre attack results, into their evaluation, and said that we have very strong results in Mitre. And the great thing is that in the latest results, which just came out the other week, we continue to have strong results. And I'm going to touch on that at the end of the end of the presentation. And really, when you put in a solution, having timely quality customer support is obviously one of the most important things. So we really do pride ourselves on building great relationships with our customers and giving them the support that they need for such an important type of function. So let me introduce our guests. So I'm going to start with Martin Littman of the Kelsey-Seybold Clinic. And Martin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the clinic.
Hi, this is Martin Littman. I am the CTO and CISO at Kelsey-Seybold Clinic in Houston. We are a combined healthcare organization, has a little over 450 physicians. We service about 26 different locations in the Houston area today. We are one of the first accredited accountable care organizations, and we provide care across the spectrum of primary care to specialty care. We also have a Medicare Advantage plan that's been a 5-star plan one of very, very few across the country. And we've had that 5-star rating for 5 years in a row now, which is quite unique.
Oh, great. So how long have you been a SentinelOne customer?
So we joined SentinelOne probably about going on 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. We did a migration from another signature-based solution. And really, one of the biggest things in our environment was we had a significant VDI space. We really needed to get to kind of what we were calling then next gen type of AV. And so that's how long we've been with SentinelOne. So quite a while.
Oh, great. Excellent. So I'm going to get back to you in a minute, but let me first introduce Alex Bernsky, sorry. And Alex, why don't you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Alex Bernsky. I'm the manager of security engineering at Cengage. I've been at Cengage for just about almost 6 years, actually. And for just about 4 of those years, we have been a customer of SentinelOne. Same story as Martin. We moved off of, at that point, a signature-only tool. But Cengage is actually a kind of a neat company with a lot of really old roots. So, originally we were a educational publisher. So, if you guys, spent any time in college or even at a high school level, you probably use some of our materials. But we've been making a very heavy transition to a technology-based platform. So we're really kind of hoping to change how education is delivered, make it more accessible and affordable. And we launched our digital first product, believe last year or the year before that, called Cengage Unlimited. And that allows people to get all of their readings for their classes at a digital subscription versus buying the book outright.
Well, I can imagine that you've probably seen a little business bump from everything that's been going on the last year and a half.
Yeah, it's been looking promising. So it's good to see that the product is working and that it's being embraced by both students as well as educators alike.
Yeah, well, I can definitely identify that with that because having kids myself, and remote learning has just been it's been a crazy year, but it's interesting how so many companies have been trying to innovate, and I'm really glad to have you here and wish you luck on all that. But let's get into some of the challenges that that we've talked about. So Martin, why don't you tell us just a little bit about some of the challenges that you observe in your work?
Sure, Grant. So on the one hand, we went to a electronic medical record, 15 plus years ago. Just as I was coming into the organization is when we implemented Epic services here. Mm-hmm. And really from that point forward, we entered an era where our need was to be up all the time. And we also went through a migration at a desktop level from a PC-based type of delivery of the application of the EMR to a virtual desktop delivery. And the combination of those things put us in a position where we really needed to be fast, nimble. We needed to drive uptime. We needed to ensure that our antivirus program was not in the way of the rest of the clinical application technology that we were delivering. And frankly, in the first several years that I was here, almost any time there was any issue, the first question was, can we turn off AV because we think that's hurting us? We haven't had to do that since we've been on SentinelOne. And then the other part of it, and especially if you look at what's happened over this last year, we've had a lot of growth in terms of virtual health. We've had a lot of situation like most companies where we've had people that have had to work remotely. So we have administrative people working remotely. We certainly do have clinical people who are working in-house, if you will. And so we have to support both of those. So really the network edge has become a very fluid entity. And mm-hmm. from my standpoint, today I say the network edge is at the endpoint.
Right. Okay, that's great. So I had a couple questions that came to mind. So I think the drive to uptime and availability probably ultimately gets back to human life, I would imagine, right? Because they were reliant on tools and systems. Is how is there anything else that's driving that besides, that basic human life? And like, who's responsible if there's a failure? How does that work in your business world?
So within healthcare, certainly patient safety is preeminent in addition to care.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essential that that systems work and are able to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, a significant piece of what we also have to do is around protecting access to data,
Mm-hmm.
and protecting that data itself and protecting it from breach. We have a fairly complete stack of security tools up and down, but the real starting point is where the human interfaces with the network, which is at the endpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So that protection of the patient, the protection of the data, the protection of the entire enterprise begins at that endpoint.
Okay. And so in my opinion, and I don't know if you agree with this, but the perimeter was dissolving before COVID, but COVID accelerated it. How do you envision any of this remote work evolving, in your opinion?
It's interesting. I think we are now in a very blended mode of operation. I was just having a conversation with my boss an hour ago about would we bring people back into the office? Would we have people work remotely? I really see us doing a mix of those things. And one of the interesting aspects of the way that we do business today is we have people who are working remotely, like myself, using their own equipment, but our VDI technology brings them through a Citrix interface. So we're kind of isolated from their technology at home. But people that are using VPNs and other methods of coming into the network have to be aware of what else might be introduced. We have to look at the introduction of a potential introduction of malware through devices that are USB based. So we were thrilled when SentinelOne added USB protection into the stack. That was a piece that we relied on heavily in our signature-based solution, and now we rely on heavily within the SentinelOne solution. So I do think it is a blend of technologies and admixing of technologies, and it will continue to evolve. I think even within the consumer space, there's an evolution of what consumers have access to technology-wise and what they use. Mm-hmm. And we have to protect our enterprises from those technologies as well, even when guests come into our network, for example.
Right. And hospitals are public places. So yeah, you've got a lot of guests coming in and out. Great. Well, thank you for that. Let me move on to Alex. So Alex, tell us about some of the challenges that you experience in your business.
So for us, I would actually echo a lot of what Martin has said, because those are all issues that we have as well. But there's, and we'll kind of work backwards on the slide here, prioritization of business and technology risk. So for us, that has been greatly changing, just as, how our product set is moving from our legacy products to our new digital products. So that risk is moving, and it's a very big difference in how we prioritize risk. Mm-hmm. We have I think, at least for Boston, I would say, which is a very tough market to find security professionals and talent in, that has, really kind of limited how big a team can be here. And then there's this just massive field of solutions that are being marketed to achieve, quote unquote, flawless security. Right. So with all of that, it's a lot to manage for the team of our size.
So how does SentinelOne help you with that dilemma of finding the right experts to run tools?
Yeah. So, my team right now, as a whole security team, we have 16 people, and everyone is responsible for their own area, but it doesn't really help with a 24/7 monitoring aspect. And this is where SentinelOne really helps out, because we use vigilance, and the vigilance guys are monitoring our environment from an endpoint standpoint pretty heavily throughout the day and night, and responding to threats as they see them come through. Huge augmentation to my team, because not only are they telling me, hey, here's a problem, they're also providing feedback on how to fix that problem and helping it find solutions to it. So can't say more about that. But at the same time, the technology itself really helps out, because it's not eating up resources. So, my team isn't wasting a lot of time going around trying to babysit, an endpoint here, an endpoint there, trying to figure out what's going on with it.
Great. So so vigilance, in case you don't know, is our MDR, or Managed Detection and Response Service, and there's a couple different flavors of that, anywhere from management of the product to up through digital forensics and investigation services. So I have one more question for you, though. Has there been a change in what your leadership expects from like some mean time to respond, and just the general resolution of events?
Yeah. I would say 100% yes. So the expectation, I think, in general, as security evolves, as the whole risk environment evolves, I think I saw there was 3 breaches in one day reported in the US just on Monday. So it's a crazy world, and the instant question from leadership is, hey, are we vulnerable to these types of attacks? So SentinelOne, along with some of our other vendors, really good in that we know that the technology is solid and that it protects our environment. So that's a big plus. But at the same time, I know that if I have a question to the support, to the vigilance guys, that they will give me a response pretty quickly. So I'm able to communicate the potential risk or lack thereof to my leadership team as quickly as possible.
Great. So thank you very much for that. Any comments from either of you as we kind of move on? Any parting until we get to the next section? Good. All right, great. So let's talk a little bit about the Gartner critical capabilities. So the Gartner critical capabilities, it's a companion report to the Magic Quadrant. It comes out at the same time. And when Gartner is asking us all the questions and doing the interviews, and we're meeting with them, because this really is it's a year-long thing. We have a relationship with Gartner almost on a weekly basis, where we're talking to their various analysts and asking them questions about the market, and we're telling them about what we're doing, and also our customers interface with the analysts. And I'll just say, if you are a Gartner customer, please feel free to talk to Gartner about us as well. And even if you're not a Gartner customer, you can still schedule those types of those requests. But back to the Gartner critical capabilities, what they do is they take a deeper look at various areas. And those items that you see on the left are kind of the categories, from ease of use to OS support and everything in between, such as how are you doing prevention and the effectiveness of it. The EDR functionality for more of the visibility side of things, the suite capabilities. Martin mentioned, things like firewall control and device control, Bluetooth control, all these types of, features that just play a role in one way or another, and all the way to how are you supporting things geographically for your customers. And so what they do is they take a deep look at that, and they look at, they've defined 3 different customer types. And I'll review those for you right now. So they define their type A, and now this is according to Gartner. Their type A is about 1 out of 5 organizations generally, and they define them as early adopters. These are the organizations that may have a deeper technology bench of people These folks tend to be a little bit more of that lean forward. We're going to go ahead and try products maybe that are new or novel in some way. And a lot of the time it's because they have the time and expertise to do a little bit of experimentation and see what's new and see how well it works for them in their environment. And then type B, as defined by Gartner, they say is about half of the organizations. It's blended. A little bit of experimentation, a little bit of proven technology. They're willing to do a little bit of both across the board. And they tend to outsource a little bit more. And then lastly, we have type C. So type C are more of the conservative organizations that may just wait a little bit and wait for technology to really prove itself before they will deploy it in their environment. They tend to have leaner staffs, according to Gartner, and are likely to outsource more of these functions. So I had a question, based on all that is, so Martin, can an organization, according to these Gartner types, can they be a different type? Or are they really just slotted into one type?
Actually, if Gartner says there are only 3 types, there's only 3 types.
I know it's a little ludicrous.
Yeah, I would say that, as I look at these, we ourselves have been in each of these types at different times and at different times simultaneously. So I think the classification is useful to understand. On the one hand, if you go back 5 years ago, our adoption of SentinelOne would have typically put us into the type A category. And today you might say that but overall, we were a type C organization because we've always run a fairly lean security staff. Although we don't outsource security, we kind of do our own. So I would say absolutely. My own personal experience is we sit in all 3 of these categories, and it varies depending on the technology, which of those we sit in. So I'm not sure that we necessarily fall into any of them, but the association makes sense to classify folks for sure.
Right. So you see a little bit of yourself across the board there. And Alex, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I again have to agree with Martin there. I think for Cengage as a whole, I think we're pretty heavily in that type B camp, although not fully. I think we encompass a lot of what type A has to offer. We do like best of breed products, but we like cutting edge innovation. Back to when we were exploring what EDR tools to look into, SentinelOne was that cutting edge innovation for us. I don't know that we ever fully hit type C at any point since I've been there, but I'm sure at some point or another it was a type C. So I think over time organizations change and adapt, and right now, at the very least, we're just right there between B and A.
Yeah, so I would agree. I used to be in positions, like both of you gentlemen are in. I'm on the vendor side now, but I totally get it. Having, been that frontline person, you take calculated risks, wise risk. You look at your evidence and you decide whether you're going to lean in or just go with something else, right? But it's all about making intelligent decisions. So if anybody wants to get a copy of that report, in the lower left corner, you can see the link, the s1.ai leader-cc. You can go there and check out the report. But let's talk about the results of the report, which are exciting for us. So when you look at how Gartner scored these, we have A, B, and C across the board there. I'm happy to say, and we're really, couldn't be more happy that we got the highest score across the board in all of these. Now, we did tie for type A with another vendor, but really what this tells you is that according to this evaluation, they're seeing our products, our services, just our company in general, as a as a very reasonable, very effective solution, regardless of kind of what type of organization you may think of yourself as. Which is, I mean, it's an easy story for me to tell. Very excited about it, but really, those are the results. So a couple of questions. So Martin, these capabilities at the top, again, these capabilities at the top are the things that they evaluated. These are the categories, right? So how are these capabilities relevant to the changing requirements of running an effective security stack?
Oh, I think there's a reason they call them critical. I mean, for a security organization, really every security organization, even in an organization that claims to not be oriented in the cloud, has some amount of SaaS activity. So the cloud dimension can't be ignored. I think from an ease of use standpoint, and I would also say ease of implementation, that's really not one that's necessarily listed here, but kind of falls into that space. Mm-hmm. The ability to quickly deploy the agent and especially to deploy any updates to the agent was a significant decision point in us moving to SentinelOne at the time. And it's interesting, while I won't say who it is, because there's a whole lot of people at SentinelOne that used to be at that company, the company that was a major leader in this advanced space 5 years ago isn't even listed there, right? It's silent when it comes to that company. The EDR functionality that has changed significantly, like Alex, I would say, we've gotten a lot of advantage out of the vigilance service, even though we don't use it to actually make changes in our environment. A second set of eyes looking at that, catching things that we might not catch because we use a distributed functionality. I mean, so from a managed services standpoint, there are also multiple flavors of that managed service that makes a big difference. And of course, the applicability across the entire operating system spectrum is also significant. So absolutely right in there. I think I'm excited to see SentinelOne up here. I've been an advocate for this positioning for many years, as you well know.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you for that. And Alex, Alex, I just realized that I made you go second every time here. So sorry about that.
That's fine. I know where I stand.
That's sorry about that. Anyway, so we were talking about this the other day, and I'm just for everybody's benefit. You remember we have this thing called storyline technology. It's just a marketing name that we have and integrated into our platform, like how we connect the dots on what's happening, right? And I think you're familiar with it. And so, how would you describe what storyline is to our friends here on the call? And how does our core of our technology, as you understand it, contribute to ease of use, prevention, and just EDR functionality in general?
Okay, so there was a few things in there. So for the storyline for the storyline bit, I think it is by far one of the most helpful features when you're trying to identify where a problem started. Has helped us out times before. Even if it's not a big security incident, just out of curiosity of someone installs a piece of software that they shouldn't install. Where did they get it? How did they get it? It's good to be able to have that storyline to kind of understand where our vectors are. So it's a really neat tool within the SentinelOne platform. So that's the first bit. What was the second bit?
You kind of nailed it. I mean, it's storyline, and I'll go over it in a bit, but it's essentially connecting the processes and events that have occurred in the environment, and it's used throughout the product for prevention and EDR.
Yep, that's pretty cool.
Thank you. So yeah, so very excited about these results. So really, here's the overview, and I won't beat this to death, but highest scores across the board for critical capabilities, and just named a leader. Very pleased. So thank you all. So I want to touch a little bit on the Mitre Ingenuity results, and I inserted this into this Gartner webinar because Gartner had mentioned our strong showing in the Gartner phase 2, the second round of the Mitre testing, but the reports overlapped, and these phase 3, the latest results came out just the other day, as I mentioned. And I just wanted to tell everybody about this other third-party test that kind of backs up some of the things that Gartner is saying about us from a product performance standpoint. So the 2020 evaluations, they're termed that way because they were performed in November of this past year, and they were just released in April. They're available on our website as well. And there are only just a couple slides I want to discuss here. What's vitally important to understand is how they, that is Mitre, do their detection categories. How do they score vendors for their ability to detect? And on the left side, you have a miss. A miss is a miss. You didn't see it. So not much more to say there. Telemetry is, it can be a useful tidbit, but it's kind of like an OS event or a software event that is taken out of context. So what the tool is telling you that produces telemetry is something happened. I'm not sure what. I don't really have a lot of context, but I do have this piece of information. And then you move into the blue box. And these are what are called analytic detections. That's what Mitre calls them. And as you'll notice in the bottom, we have this minimally processed data moving to the right to enriched data. And the whole idea is can the tool produce context and correlate things automatically, really for the purpose of making the job easier for the analyst, making the job easier for whoever the responder is, and also potentially take automatic responses if that is what you want to do. And really, it's all about, why is this happening and how did the attack occur? So the other part of the test is that Mitre defines are config changes and delays. And so what happens is during the test, the vendors, and there were, I believe, 29 of them this year, they were permitted to do configuration changes in order to improve their detections, but the test proctors would note that. So, okay, you can make a config change in order to make the product perform better. And sometimes there were delays because there might have been data that was shipped from the test rig to another system in order to incriminate that piece of data to then say, yes, we have detection, but we had a little bit of delay in determining that. So these are the scoring terms and kind of what's behind them. This is all on the Mitre Ingenuity website, essentially as is how what you'll see there. So we have more comprehensive webinars on this at SentinelOne, but this is kind of the gist here is that when you look at the vendors, we had the highest level of analytic detections with 0 misses, 0 config changes, and 0 delay detections. And what that means is that when you don't miss a detection, that just instills more confidence. When you don't have to constantly tweak the product and do configuration changes, that's kind of, well, it works out of the box. It's doing what it's designed to do. And when you don't have to have delayed detections, you're really moving at machine speed. So just throwing that out there that, our performance, we're very happy with that performance. And we are continually striving for more and more automation, but still giving that control to the administrators for when they run it. And the last thing on Mitre is, what is the experience of the operator? And what you see on the right here is a screenshot of the actual dashboard of the Mitre test rig. And over 2 days of this emulated APT attack, there were actually 2 of them, there were 174 steps throughout the 2 days. And what SentinelOne's product did is it automated sorting and all of the data and gave the operator 7 campaign level alerts. So that really just makes the job easier for the analyst in that it sorts through everything and just presents the information to you in an easy format so that you can do your investigation, you can do your response. Guys, any comments on any of the Mitre stuff that you might have?
Alex has to go first.
Alex.
I mean, so I was really happy to see this because Mitre for all intents and purposes is the standard of how everyone should be looking at attacks. It's always good to see that the tools that we're investing in are protecting us in the best possible way. In general, I think potentially, a delay is almost as bad as a full miss. To just point that out, because if it's a delay, then there's a chance that you already had some information leave. So I think that's important to note here. But it's just really great results, and very excited to be working with the tool.
As security people, I'm sure Alex gets this all the time. I do too. Anytime somebody talks to me and they say, what keeps you up at night? Outside of my neighbors, I figure they're talking about security stuff. And so my comment is that I have always wanted my security tools to be competent when we may be in the delay or we may miss. These results really speak to the testimony that we've all been saying, those of us in the SentinelOne user community, that this is a product that we can rely on because it will catch the stuff that other tools may miss, and we can rely on it. And we can sleep better at night because we know the Sentinel is working when we're not. Nothing more exciting than to see how much farther SentinelOne outperforms everybody else in this space, for sure.
I think it's a great story to bring to leadership and to say, hey, you know what? Because eventually they'll ask the question of, are we susceptible to XYZ ransomware? That's, pick your flavor out at that moment in time. And it's really nice to say, hey, the chances are this won't affect us. And although, I can't give them 100%, to Martin's point, I can at least sleep good at night. So
yeah, great. Love the comments. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we have a number of different simulations and white papers. If you're interested, just go to the website link there. We have a really cool 2 videos. If you want to know step by step how the Mitre testing unfurled, we have a highly accurate step-by-step animation, again, in 2 videos, and you can see exactly what they did in the testing. It's kind of fun to watch. If you have 6 or 7 minutes, check it out. Let us know if you need more information on that. The last section here, I believe, is just a little bit about our platform innovation. And I just wanted to kind of dig a little bit into the storyline technology. It's really core to what we do here, or one of them, I should say. And as I mentioned earlier, that the storyline mechanism it connects the dots of what's happening inside of a device. Okay, think of it as distributed intelligence, where we're building this context, building this story, regardless of whether it's a Windows server, Windows workstation, Mac. We support 11, I believe, flavors of Linux, Kubernetes workloads. It doesn't matter. We're building this context automatically in real time to have, and then it's used for multiple purposes. So whenever possible, if we can determine that this story or this set of interrelated stories, are going beyond what we consider to be normal, we can drive a very high velocity, instantaneous protective reaction to that in order to stop it. So you're not, caught up into this constant sort of 110/60 type of situation where you're having to send a lot of data to a cloud and people have to look at it in order to determine what's going on. It is much more of an automated response function. However, we know that that doesn't always fit the situation. So that storyline data is also retained for long periods of time so that the SOC team or investigators, hunters, whatever it might be, can use that pre-contextualized data to whatever purpose they see fit, and all of this Mitre technique information is embedded in those storylines for their purposes. And the last point here is, because we know what happened at all points in time, we can actually play that. I'm going to date myself here, but we can play that tape in reverse to clean it up, to back out the unauthorized changes, either automatically or with one click, depending on how much automation you want there. So this is something that's very key to our platform. And on the platform itself, speaking of that, I've mentioned that we support a lot of different OSs. We have different ways that we package this up, but kind of at a high level, we have prevention and control measures. This is your next gen AV and type of suite functions, as I mentioned before. And then we have the detection and response functions that are designed for ease of use. So if you are maybe more of a novice EDR user, no problem. A lot of facilities in there to up level your game in the use of the EDR. But if you are a real pro at incident response and you really know the internals of OSs and what's going on, if you harken back to that type A type of organization, the lean forward ones, the ones that are have the highest end security people, you can see that this Gartner third-party analyst is saying that we're appropriate for that type of operation as well. And then there's the remediation and recovery functions all built in. And I haven't even really gotten into network visibility and attack surface control. This is another function that we have within the product that gives you visibility as to what's connected on the network, and the ability to defend against unknown devices, all from that same piece of software, that same SaaS service. And XDR is a term that we're hearing more and more. We already have integrations with a lot of products that you can see in our marketplace. And this is going to be a big area of growth for us this year. At SentinelOne, we recently acquired a company called Scalar, which is a data platform. And we are very busy at integrating Scalar into our technology, which will expand our horizons in XDR to allow us to ingest even more types of data, to action that data, to understand what is happening across devices, to have a true XDR type of platform. And lastly, I'll say here that the gentlemen on the call have alluded to and talked about our MDR service and our DFIR services. Those are optional services, but we do see a lot of customers. The trend is definitely up in people that are purchasing these types of services, as that the eyes and ears, that to the assist, the augmentation to their internal staffing. So with that, I'd like to thank both of you heartily, Alex and Martin, for attending today's call. I guess in parting thoughts, any parting thoughts with relation to anything, or any of our guests that are contemplating changing up their endpoint security or other components?
I'll toss in one point, Grant, that for those who are still living in the signature-based world, and I made this point recently in an email to somebody, that in the signature-based world, there's a heavy reliance on scanning and scanning existing files and things of that nature. And the whole evolution of malware has moved us away from that type of technology. And it's also interruptive to the operations of the services. So that's one of the significant advantages in the SentinelOne world, is the intelligence is there, not relying on scanning technology and therefore interrupting business operations. So I think that's another key point to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, good one.
I'd say in general, for anyone that, you know, isn't a customer yet, and is either on the fence or living in the old signature world, especially that second group, you know, it's a great time to move over into the, you know, EPP EDR space. And, you know, at the very least, from the Cengage point of view, the partnership we have with SentinelOne has been, you know, has been very positive. And, you know, I think honestly, some of the hardest working people that I've worked with, and the support that you get from SentinelOne, both on the product side and on the MDR side, is just phenomenal. So, you know, just amazing people.
Great. I couldn't ask for better testimonial. So I thank both of you again. I hope the folks on the call have enjoyed this. Thank you all for attending. Check us out on the web. I have a couple of links there. If you already have a relationship with us, you know, please reach out to us. We're happy to answer questions. If you're working with a partner or distributor, please give them a call. Ask them about us. We are here to help. We're here to help you think through, you know, what it is you're trying to do, to see if there's a fit between our organization and yours. And with that, I will close it down and wish everyone a good morning and a good afternoon and good evening wherever you happen to be. And thank you very much, both of you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.